Let's talk about healthcare again. And you probably know that I believe that healthcare is, if not one of but the most important thing in your life. If you don't have your health, it's going to be a tough life no matter what. There are some countries where healthcare is absolutely unacceptable. I would strongly suggest to stay away from those countries, no matter how amazing everything else is. I would only go after countries that do have a pretty good standard of healthcare, and especially when it comes to private hospitals, which are kind of medical groups here. A lot of these countries do have healthcare at a much higher level than you do in Europe or America. I think this is one of the biggest unspoken secrets about these countries. The healthcare here is much better. Now, most of the time, of course, I'm talking about private hospitals, but as we talked before, these countries are pretty affordable. So your healthcare is also very affordable. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of people who don't even bother having a health insurance and just pay with cash. However, I would not recommend going that route, and I'll explain why. Having an insurance is definitely very important here, because even though the healthcare is relatively affordable, or a lot of times very affordable, that's only day-to-day little boo-boos that really don't take that much money. However, if you're going to get a health condition that is rough, right, something that's probably going to require a lot of medical attention, well, those bills will add up, especially if you want to go to better hospitals. And the way insurance here works is there are amazing insurance companies where once you pay your annual payment, you don't pretty much ever have to pay any co-pays, there are no deductibles, and so forth and so forth. And it is very affordable. I pay probably 5 times less for better healthcare here than I've ever have in America. And I had one of the best California PPO health insurance plans. Unlike in America, there is no Obamacare here, believe it or not. So there is still such a thing as pre-existing conditions, meaning if you want your insurance to cover your medical expenses, they absolutely will, except for the ones that you already have. That you will always pay out of pocket. So the sooner you get your health insurance, the faster you're going to have everything else covered, because the longer you live, the more conditions you're going to have, the less coverage you're going to have unless you get your health insurance up front. I got my health insurance before I ever step a foot in this country, and I recommend that you do the same. And it is very likely that the medical records in your country are very much private, so it is up to you how to interpret your own medical conditions when you disclose your medical history. However, if you lived here for a while and now you do have a footprint in the medical industry, well, there's nowhere to hide. Your insurance company will absolutely request the medical records from the hospitals in this country, and then it's going to be up to them how to interpret whether or not you do have those pre-existing conditions or not. And guess what? You're not going to be happy about their decisions. I should also mention that mental health services are not as popular or even talked about in many of these countries as they are in America and in Europe. So there's a chance, especially if you want English-speaking therapists, that you may have to keep your current American or European therapist, which you know will already cost you a pretty penny. However, it is possible here to find one. Just know it is much harder. So if you do have mental health issues, this is something to think about before moving into any country of your choice.